A lot of people feel stuck when they're about to begin doing their digital marketing. What's the easiest way to overcome that and think strategically and think smart about what they need to do, but to begin to go?
So I would look at this in stages. And the first stage is awareness, because no one knows that you have this thing, whether that be a service or a product. And I'm going to tell you my experience, how I approached the businesses that I've created, because it's changed over time on how I look at this. But what's been consistent is a healthy mix between brand and then performance marketing. And what I mean by brand is that's like really getting your name out there. That is getting the product or service you do out there and associating with your name. That could be anything from like billboards to being on the news to digital display ads. And I'm not advocating for any one of those right now. I'm just saying like that's your brand.
That's the category. Put it in these categories.
That's the category.
Yeah.
The second thing would be performance marketing, and those are tied to individual outcomes per visit. So basically, you'd be creating an ad, and the purpose of that ad is to get a sale, like right there, or at least to collect information and get a future sale. And you have to really kind of know what you're doing there, because you could spend a lot of money driving people to your website and not getting the outcomes you need. When we first started Go, we didn't have a lot, and we had to get this awareness that Go Brewing is now a thing. And the first thing I did is hired a PR firm. Because initially, when you are creating a business, you need social proof really quickly. But social proof is a way for a third party or a customer to validate that you're a real thing.
Sure.
And when you're on the news or you're on a trusted source, you immediately get kind of that validation. It's just in our psyche that like, oh, this must be a real thing because they're vetting you. It's not easy to get in those places. But you actually don't do it to be on the news, which is a little bit counterintuitive and something I figured out. I think 15 years ago you did it for that.
Sure.
What you do it for is social content. Yep. You actually are going to use it in your performance marketing. So the benefit to PR early is that you can use it for brand and performance marketing. And some of our top performing ad campaigns, performance ad campaigns, are actually driven from PR.
Yeah.
So that was like a cornerstone of how we started. So we took a lot of that content, posted it organically, and that helped build our brand as well. I would not have started with billboards. I would not have started with anything that was very expensive. Typically, if you find a good niche PR firm, you might be spending a few $1,000s. So yes, that's an investment. But billboards are extremely expensive. You're looking at 10 to 20x that, depending if you want
Sure.
like the right coverage. Then you have the performance marketing side, and this is really important. And for the purposes of this conversation, I'm just going to focus on Meta because it's a discovery network. So if you have a product or service that isn't a need, when I say need, if I'm an electrician, Meta might not be the best place. I'm not saying it's not an okay place to advertise on, but Google's probably better, or some of these search engines where you could look at the intent. When you need an electrician, you're not just doing it for fun. Like you need work done. When you need a plumber, you need work done. So you want to show up in those places. But the difference is Google is an intent engine. Facebook and Instagram, they're discovery engines. Those places are really important to advertise as a new business because the algorithm will start to find customers that are ideal for you.
So when you were setting up your brand campaigns, utilizing the PR that you were getting, were you also running ads that weren't based on that PR? And how did you approach developing that from a brand standpoint?
So I did it a few ways. When we first launched, it was on the cusp of the Super Bowl. And I knew Heineken was doing a Super Bowl ad. So what I did is I created a landing page that says Go Brewing versus Heineken and a comparison page. Like literally month one. And no one had heard about Go Brewing. But what I did know is that Heineken probably wasn't going to do something like that. And we could optimize for search engines a month or two before the Super Bowl started. And this campaign still exists. You could Google it. It's not like the prettiest landing page in the world. But at the time, it worked. And I had a crazy offer on there to say like, purchase our product and get 30, 40% off. Like it was kind of that like loss leader just to get our name out there around the Super Bowl time. So for context, you're watching the Super Bowl, you're going to see this Heineken Zero ad. You're going to go to Google and you're going to enter, Heineken Zero. Our Google ad would show up. So we were bidding on Heineken Zero's name. And then it would drive people to this landing page. And they're like, who's Go Brewing? And that actually started our performance marketing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so you just have to look at like those moments, right? You can step out and say, okay, well, what moment is going on that I could capitalize on and dive into that. So once I did that and I started indexing for who's a competitor to Heineken Zero, is there any other good NAs out there? I would build these landing pages that would show how how we compare to everyone else. We had nothing, so you got to like lean into like what you do have. So what do we have compared to Heineken Zero? Well, we were a craft brewery. Like everything was by hand. So we had this small team, very specialized grain.
Yeah.
We actually had a little alcohol in our beer because we were under 0.5%. So we didn't de-alkalize it. So I leaned into the processing out the alcohol, which is true. Like they were literally like using a machine to take out the alcohol. We didn't do that. Ours is more natural. So I leaned into all these things. So if you're sitting there thinking you don't have anything, you do. You just got to figure out what that is. And it could be you're the underdog and you lean into that. So that got us a ton of sales. And then I built one of those landing pages out for every competitor that was worthy, like Brewdog, Athletic, everyone, and say, go Brewing versus this company, go Brewing versus that company. Because I just liked SEO and I wanted to see how we could rank. And to this day, like if you type in any query of any competitor, we're probably going to be ranked number one. And that's really important because that's considered earned media, which is an overall bucket. So you want to look at earned media as media you don't pay for on an ongoing basis. And that would be something like you get a write-up in Forbes. An editor purchased our product and just happened to write about it and put us in as the top 2 of 8 best NA beers. That's earned media. So that would go in that bucket. And then I could use some of that for an ad.
So let's quickly shift to the performance marketing side of this. So there's so many different options in terms of setting up these campaigns. How should somebody get into thinking about tracing my ad campaign on Meta, for example, all the way through to my sales and making sure I'm measuring that?
If you're on Shopify, and that's what I'm going to focus on right now, it's pretty easy. If you're not and you have a different website or you're in the automotive space, like this isn't going to apply to you as much if the transaction can't be measured online.
Okay.
If it can be, what you want to do is put on the metapixel that Facebook provides you, because what that'll do is it'll match any sale that's happening back to that ad. And that's going to give you your return on ad spend, your cost per acquisition, all those things. If you don't have that, they're not going to know it. But the algorithm is so good now that it's not about you going into these platforms and saying, oh, I want to target someone between 35 to 54 that drinks any beer. It was like that when we started. Now you let the algorithm work for you. And what I mean by that is because you have that metapixel on the website, as soon as a customer purchases, it'll create a lookalike immediately, the algorithm does. And it'll find more people like that.
So you don't even need to set up a lookalike campaign anymore. You're saying it's going to do it.
It'll do it. So the structure is you set up a campaign. In that campaign, you'll have ad sets. So you have the campaign that is fairly broad, and then you have an ad set that gets a little more specific. And the reason why you want it under one campaign and you want probably 5 to 6 ads under one ad set is what Facebook does is they have a phase called learning. So it's actually learning from that example that I just said. So once a customer purchases, it'll find like customers. Well, that whole process takes time. Mm-hmm. If you are constantly creating all these new campaigns, the algorithm has no chance to really understand who your customer is. And even if you start targeting, what you're doing is you're basically taking what could be like a huge auditorium and you're putting your total available market into like a small room. And you're like, okay, well, don't go after these people, just go after these few instead. And now your pool of people you can market to are much smaller because you're refining it and you're not letting the algorithm do it. Because in that auditorium, there could be 50% of those people that don't even know they want your product yet.
That seems really key. And I think probably even a lot of experienced marketers don't know that you don't need to go into this, here's who I think my customer is, and that's what I want to target. You're saying rely on the power of this algorithm to help reveal and get to more efficiently more customers than you think might be out there.
In today's world of advertising on Meta, it is way less important to focus on targeting and way more important to focus on creative. The algorithm is so good that you can put in 30 pieces of creative and it will find the right creative format, if that is a reel, if that is an image, if that's a carousel, and it will put it in front of that customer at the right time, that prospect at the right time. What that means is you need to put in 30 pieces of creative. Now AI is helping with this, and now Facebook has all these like AI plugins that will optimize your ads. Actually change the content of some of your ads for you automatically. It'll put overlays on there. Sometimes it puts music. I should say some of it's cheesy now, but it's getting better and better. And you could just see a world where in not even a year from now, it's going to be very optimized where you don't have to put in so much work. But today, it is very hard to keep up with how much content you need in terms of the creative ads, the way they look, because you need multiple formats and you need to keep feeding this hungry beast. Otherwise, you're going to start to see your acquisition costs go up because it doesn't have enough content to show now this expanded audience that it found for you.
I'm glad you brought up the acquisition cost because I think this is an important thing that we've had some feedback on. There's probably so many different metrics that somebody could really look at and obsess over. What are the two that you say, these are the ones that you need to watch and start from there so that you can evaluate what you're doing?
Your return on ad spend is a pretty important metric. So that is how much revenue are you getting back from the ads that you're spending money on? For example, if I'm spending $100 on a Meta ad and I'm getting $200 in revenue, my return on ad spend is 2. If you are below 1, that means you're spending $100 on Meta and you're getting less than $100 back. That's not really good business, no matter how good your product is, unless your product costs negative dollars to make or service, which we know isn't true. If my gross margin's 50% and I'm spending $100 on a Meta ad and I get 200 back, well, that 200, my cost of goods was 100. So really, my gross profit is nothing and probably negative by the time you do fulfillment costs and all that stuff and returns. So you want to really look at your business and determine what your return on ad spend needs to be. But just know that when you start, don't be discouraged because the algorithm is going to learn as long as you have a solid foundation that we talked about. And this is why it's so critical to do everything that we talked about in the previous podcast of having a website with a unique selling proposition, a way to capture customers' data, make it very clean and simple. If you don't have that, you are going to spend so much money and not get any return on it. Because all of the platforms are really good at taking your money. They don't really care that you're not optimized. Like they want to create a good return on ad spend because they want you to come back as a customer. However, they're not going to sit around and wait for you to make that happen. And then eventually your cost per acquisition is going to go even higher because what happens is if you don't drive sales through the algorithm, it's going to think it's giving people a bad experience. So you're going to pay a premium to send someone to your website. Like going back to that Heineken example that I talked about earlier, I paid a lot more for those ads because if someone's Googling Heineken and Go Brewing shows up, it's not as relevant to that consumer. So you're going to pay a premium to show up in that spot. It's not dissimilar when you look at Meta. You're going to spend more money to attract a customer if the experience isn't ideal.
Okay, I want to try to get a summary of this because we actually covered quite a bit that I think is really insightful. So I come to you as an early stage entrepreneur, say, Joe, I'm stuck. This is all overwhelming. It's not my area of expertise. How do you, in 10 seconds, say, this is what you need to know, this is how you need to start?
You have to look at this in buckets. The brand side and the performance marketing side. And I would focus on brand, getting it out there and explaining to the prospects how you're going to solve a problem or achieve a desire in the creative. And you're going to take that same creative, the social proof or testimonials that you gather, and you're going to apply that to performance marketing. So you're going to have those things work hand in hand. And I think that is critical.